Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that link. I don't know what happened with that. I'll just have to um get the original one from the email that um Melanie had sent me, and maybe that will fix it.
Yeah,
But
I just logged on through the Dojo site.
okay. Yeah, because that one's the original one, so I'm guessing that one will
Got it.
always work.
Got it.
I logged on from the one that Amanda posted in the comments. So thank you for posting that. Happy Friday, y'all. Dax, do you want to come say hi? Dax is with me today. Oh, goodness. There we go.
Hi, Dax.
Hi. We are going on a mission this weekend. You want to tell them what we're going to do?
Oh yeah, what we're going to be doing is basically we found this restaurant where it supposedly has the world's best mac and cheese. And for some reason it's only $32.
$32 for the cheese?
For the world's best mac and cheese, it's only $32.
Wow. Pretty awesome.
But the recipe for this mac and cheese at this restaurant we're going to, it has lobster and truffle mushrooms in it. So it'll be our first time eating truffles. So we're still on the food kick.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I really don't have too awful much for today. I just kind of wanted to tell everybody about the new moon powwow for this weekend. I'm gonna check our participants real quick. Do you guys think we should wait to see if anybody else? Well, it's only 12:29. So I'm gonna wait a little bit. I've been kicking some butt at work this morning, you guys.
Awesome.
How has everybody else's week been?
I've had a rough week actually. I don't know, the students or kids coming in are just in a funk, I guess. They're just like, I don't know what's going on with them. They're just all really depressed and just yeah, it's just been a really funky week. Maybe it's me because I'm anticipating vacation too, that I don't like quite have the same energy that I'm bringing to it, but it's just been a really blah kind of week for me.
Oh, I feel yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like those kind of energies are kind of flowing around everywhere.
Right.
It's been
It's like you bring like, each day I'm like, all right, I could do this today. I bring a ton of energy to it. And it's like after the first couple kids, it's like, plus my own too, it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, how are we gonna, if art's not gonna bring you out of this, what are we gonna do?
yeah.
So yeah, it's been a rough week.
Well, with summer coming, you know what I was thinking of doing with Dax is a Jackson Pollock type painting with like a giant sheet or something out in the yard. And with, those water squirters, those
Yep.
big long water squirters, we'll fill them with paint and squirt the paint all over it. Maybe get them outside, but you know what? You're also going on vacation, so you definitely need this recharge for sure.
And it's still pretty cold here. Like we're still like rainy, and today's finally warming up. It's like 50 or something, but it's still pretty cold. So I just can't wait to get them outside. And like a year ago, I did like a couple years ago, I did a big thing with kids where it was called Let's Get Messy. and everything was about them painting themselves and everything around them. I mean, I filled water balloons with paint and squirt guns and, the colored powder and stuff like that. Super fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Fun to do.
The water balloons sound like a good idea.
The water balloons were really fun to fill with paint.
Oh yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We could pop him with his bow and arrow or something cool, or the BB gun.
Right? Yep.
Probably not something for the art studio, but
you might be surprised.
well, you're probably out in the country, so
Yep.
folks over there probably are cool with that.
Yeah, especially if it's like a registration thing where it's like so many kids and we go out, you can get away with a lot.
Sign the waivers.
Yep.
I'm going to check participants again real quick. Hey, everybody. So I see that we have a little bit more guests here. It is 12:32. So for this meeting, the biggest thing is that I just want to tell everybody that we're having a new moon powwow, and it is this Sunday. And so we have invited a radical unschooler to come sit with us and just have our little discussion. So if you guys want to brainstorm something that you might want to ask a radical unschooler, a radical unschooling is another label. It is 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is definitely it's way random. It's last minute. It's this Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our guest is, I think she's in Arizona, she said. So it's going to be like 6 p.m. her time. So it's going to be really perfect for her. And for me, it'll be 9 p.m. And I feel like, it'll be a good time. Everybody's kind of winding down on a Sunday evening. So hopefully it's an okay time for everybody. I don't really know if our powwows are going to really have like a set time. I think we'll just kind of play it by ear each month. And we're just going to do one a month. So we'll do this new moon powwow for the pink moon. I really have no idea what the actual date of the new moon is, but as far as I can see, there's no moon up there, so I think she's new. And I'm saying that this weekend is new moon, so I believe it to be so. And I kind of wanted to explain a little bit about what I've gathered about the radical unschooling. Can you watch out, because I got to scoot back, please? Thank you. All right, I didn't want to clip any fingers down there. So hold on, I'm going to catch that chat. I didn't read it. New moon in 2 days. Oh, so perfect. It's the 11th. So you guys, I'm actually on the number days, the made up numbers. All right, cool. I normally don't get it on the day, but so perfect. And radical unschooling is a type of environment at home where they are less on the rules and more on giving the child the room to make their own judgment on things. From my understanding, they are like way unscheduled, way just go with the flow, do as we want kind of thing. I joined a radical unschooling Facebook group, and some of the things that I see on there are blowing my mind away with some of the things that they just they either don't do or they do. So it's very interesting, and I'm very interested to hear from her. She was also Yeah, man. Josh, if she wants to explore astronauts, absolutely. And, then she can, find out what she really thinks about it. Dax has been exploring for a while. He actually discovered the flat earth theory on his own. So I've been letting him explore anything he wants to in that area, really. And it's really fun discussion, because we have, when we talk about the flat earth and the globe
Oh yeah.
and the donut and all the different theories out there. Donuts. I got your donut over there. So you guys, if you want to raise your hand, and I don't even know if anybody's hand is raised, but if you want to add anything, Lynette, go ahead.
Yeah, so this woman that we're bringing in, she was also a unschooled girl herself. And so now she is radical unschooling her children. I believe, if it's my understanding, she has a child that's non-binary. Like it's pretty, I think it's gonna be a pretty interesting conversation. She is not, to my knowledge, very aware of our group or James's work or anything of that nature. I'm pretty sure if she were to know what we were about, she would probably not have agreed to do this with us. But I think it'll be pretty fascinating. Another thing with the radical unschooling approach that I think is pretty interesting is there's pretty much like no rules. So if a child wants to eat themselves until they're sick, they're allowed to do that. And it's pretty extreme. So I think it's going to be really fascinating. And I'm pretty excited to see what she brings. So you guys prepare your questions.
Yeah, I think I'm really excited to talk to her about her experience as a child, being so different from all the other kids. I would really love to know like her feelings through the whole experience as a child. I'm really interested to hear about that. I did give her the Dojo Earth link, and I gave her the YouTubes and stuff. So she is she's really excited, and she was like totally cool with the last minute. So I think it's going to be really fun. But I agree, Josh, like maybe, let's not talk I'm not going to say, you guys can of course talk however you want. But yeah, let's not like throw any crazy curveballs, I suppose, because I don't know what her beliefs are. And whatever they may be, those are hers to have, of course, So I missed that one. All I caught in that chat was she better be something. I'm gonna check the participants real quick. Nobody has their hand up right now. So I guess I am gonna ask if anybody has anything that they want to bring to the table. Like if anybody has anything they just want to talk about today, because that's really all I had to bring to the meeting today. We could talk about parenting vitriol that we all get on a weekly basis. Or if you have any questions about the guest or the radical unschooling, but I just think it's going to be fun. A nice late night excursion. I got Lynette and Josh, whoever wants to go first.
Josh, go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Sorry, I'm not on video. I'm just outside in the middle of finishing up a workout. So yeah. Yeah, I think this is great. I don't know if I'll be able to attend Sunday at 9 Eastern. We'll see. It's usually the time that we put the kiddos down. So yeah, I don't know about that, but we'll see either way. I think it's an awesome idea. And, I think kind of have to don't out say have to, because, it's funny you say she's about, radical unschooling, which, my comment was like, well, she's kind of living in the flow state, right? Explore what you want to explore and get into a weird stuff and figure it out. So I don't think we'll freak her out even if we bring up some things. But yeah, I mean, obviously you bring somebody in as a guest, you don't want to be confrontational with them. You want to be, respectful of the stuff. It's about what we can learn from them. I suppose, I would just want to throw out or mention in the context of you mentioned like parenting challenges or stuff of that nature. The idea keeps kind of coming back up within, my family about the medical system, and it's funny because my science, which
You're breaking
we
up
didn't go to.
just a little bit. We missed
Oh.
that beginning part where you said my wife.
Sorry. So my wife was raised the same as I was in Christian Science, which we don't go to doctors or anything, believe in, I guess to put it simply, sort of the power of healing through prayer. And, we've gotten older. We both have, gone through our own rounds of vaccinations later in life and kind of come full circle on it. But now with all the stuff going on, while she's agreed like not to further vaccinate our kids anymore, and they're still young, they're 2 and 4. So that's good. But then, she has this like desire to travel, right? And the notion keeps coming back up because it's so popular that it's like the vaccine pass, travel, whatever. And then she brings up just the other day, she went for a 2-year wellness visit for our son, which I wasn't really in favor of, but, I've got to give some ground here as well if I want to have a relationship. So she did it, but agreed, like not doing any vaccinations, not taking any blood work or anything. So like, hey, more power to her. Like she's amazing on a lot of fronts. But then also brought back the notion of like, well, the doctor was saying like, if we're going to travel and we're going to go like on a cruise, internationally, like, even things like polio, which she brought up specifically, which I thought was interesting. Even though it's, not like fully eradicated, but it's kind of gone here in the US, but like overseas, for example, and like the Middle East, and, we were going towards like Greece, right? So she's kind of throwing that in the same general vicinity. Like, oh, they've got a big, problem with that too. And, you could get exposed to it. So, I don't know exactly what I'm bringing other than maybe just a little bit of the interesting frustration that keeps bubbling up. And it's like, I'm out here in my backyard looking at my garden. It's like the weeds that constantly come back up, right? And like, there's just, you're just going to constantly have to prune them, which I guess is a bad example because you guys know that weeds aren't really what people think they are, but I think you catch the drift. So anyway, I'll leave it there, but yeah, just some stuff that keeps bubbling back up for me.
Well, I'll comment on that, Josh. With, you're talking about reframing the weeds, and I think there could be some reframing done as well with the stuff that I know you've dabbled in, but like the history of pandemics, books like The Invisible Rainbow, right? They go into this kind of stuff, and just there is a kind of a way to rationally understand things in a different way that I think could help your wife see things differently. I know I'm being a little vague. Because I wouldn't normally speak up to people, right? I kind of tend to stay quiet because it's a lot to try and help people understand how nature actually works. But in this space, I feel compelled to speak up, and just this fear of polio or this fear of these so-called infectious diseases it's just highly irrational when you understand how nature works and just biology in general, and the suppressed sciences, and just things like Harold Hillman, I think is the name. His work just basically shedding light on how the entirety of mainstream medical science is based on dead stained things and, you know, looking at dead stained things under a microscope in a petri dish. And it's just so divorced from how nature actually works. And the people that, you know, did that actual research where they were looking at living blood, right? And they were seeing things like pleomorphism, where living vessels actually change shape and change form based on the terrain of the blood, or based on what's needed in the body, that kind of stuff. And just the fact that these people like Royal Rife and others had their microscopes stolen, and it's just so blatantly obvious when you see the big picture. But I think it does take knowing some of that history, knowing how the Rockefellers and, you know, hijacked the AMA, or not hijacked, created the AMA to hijack medicine, I guess I should say. And just, you know, I'm not really that great at memorizing all the details of this stuff, but I have been down that rabbit hole enough to rectify in my own understanding what is the con game, right? What is being portrayed as legitimate science and medicine, and what is reality? And they're just so different. And there really is, I mean, this last year really helped me fully, or just more fully, awaken to that mythology, that delusion that runs rampant through the mass psychology. And it's just because it's in all the movies, it's in all the shows, we just kind of assume, it can't all be wrong. But no, it's all wrong. It's all inaccurate. And I think a good place to start is really just looking at nature. I think soil biology is one of these things that's like, because we are the living soil, and that doesn't get suppressed in the realm of soil biology, right? There's not that same cartel regulating what comes out as science. And so you start seeing how things actually work, and how diversity is key, and how there's different terrains lead to different decomposing elements, that kind of thing, whether it's aerobic or anaerobic. Just there are certain conditions that are suitable for certain life, things along those lines. Anyways, I could expand, but I just wanted to say, like, I mean, if we can have those conversations, or I can share videos that might help bring more perspective to your wife, just because the clear reality to me is no vaccine has ever helped anyone. You don't help yourself by injecting pharmaceutical products into your body. Polysorbate 80, right, allows things to pass through the blood-brain barrier, and you're putting these metals that we now know are highly correlated with things like Alzheimer's and things like autism spectrum conditions. And it's all out there, but it's behind this massive propaganda firewall that people just don't think to look behind, because they're all wanting that. They're in that state of social conformity where it's just like, oh, everyone believes this and everyone thinks it's true, so all that stuff is just conspiracy. But it's like, no, that's reality. And what is presented through all these I don't know, like new scientists, or all these just arms of the propaganda machine, it's highly catered towards perpetuating a massive profit system that profits on perpetually keeping people ill and suppressing symptoms, which are really, when you dig into the stuff, symptoms are a part of the body's process and healing, and are necessary. And when you just perpetually suppress that, your body's like, well, okay, it's kind of like, I mean, basically your body will just stop trying to heal, and then you might just have some toxin lodged in a certain space, and it might harden into a tumor or something like that. But I'm like, lately I've just been really having a lot of clarity on this kind of stuff, and seeing how amazing the body is and what it's capable of, and experimenting in my own life. Because for people who don't know, I also was raised in a similar way, you know, not going to doctors, not taking pharmaceuticals. I've never been vaccinated, and just, you know, that foundation of having a religion that appreciated the notion of healing through prayer, but now, you know, later in life, really integrating that with a more scientific understanding of how biology works, right? How you know, to me, it's all, well, anyways, I think I'm done with my rant, but you know, I feel you, Josh. I have compassion, and that sounds like a tough thing to be going through. So that's all. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, Danny. I'm actually going to add to that because that's exactly where I was going to go with it. So my realization process, you know, when we realize that we're living in this inverted reality, it all started with vaccines and looking into vaccines. And when my son was born, you know, they tell you all of the, they tell you what to expect and what you're supposed to do, right? And I always waited longer, and I did get his vaccines from the time he was born to the time he was 1. And at that point, it was like, this is so much, right? Like it was just that feeling like something's wrong. So I started to look into it at that point. And when you really dig into it and when you really start looking for what's really going on here, and you go back to where it all started, you realize that, just like he said, there's not a single pharmaceutical drug or vaccine that could ever help our body. Specifically talking about polio, polio was eradicated before the vaccine ever came out. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny is a MD and a chiropractor and a holistic practitioner. And she has done amazing work on the research and trying to get that word out. And a lot of what Danny was talking about is about terrain theory. And the terrain theory is pretty much recognizing that our body is in its own environment. We are our own filtration system, and we have everything we need as long as we have a healthy terrain. Just like in the woods, if there are no pollutants and there's no, you know, we don't mess with it, then it thrives. But when we have our pollutants and everything, the bees die, the plants die, and our body is the same. So our health is the terrain that we live in, is what the terrain theory is talking about. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny specifically is not 100% on board with the terrain theory, but I have found her to be a very powerful person when I am trying to show like a fellow parent or my mother or my brother, they're thinking about having kids. Dr. Sherry Tenpenny is just a really good person to start with because she has those laminated credentials that really give that person the trust in them, I guess. You know, it's just that belief that because she has that lamination, yeah. So I think that Dr. Sherry Tenpenny would be really powerful for you to look into to help your wife really see what's going on. And I don't think that like you specifically have to get any vaccines to travel, except for that COVID pass. We all have that travel bug for sure. So I definitely feel her on that one. As I wish you absolutely well with your venture with that, because there's really no arguing. If she wants to go on a trip, she's probably going to go on a trip, whatever she has to do. But I definitely recommend Dr. Sherry Tenpenny for that one. And that will it really will open apertures and send them down that rabbit hole for sure. Danny, thank you again for bringing all of that, because I could have never explained that in such a way that you did. Amber, is that you as iPhone, dear? If that is, go ahead and unmute.
Yeah, that's me. Lynette, were you before me?
You can go ahead. I'll go after. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Lynette.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure. My phone wants to fall over. There. Don't. So I love everything you guys said, and every person is different with them reaching the point where they're ready to actually wake up. And I've tried so many different approaches for reaching people. I've tried sharing about Rockefeller medicine, because that was it's so obvious if you look at the foundational principles that our modern medical system was built upon, and still people don't get it. And then I've gone the Andrew Kaufman approach of trying to explain, what viruses really are from the exosome perspective. And it's still really hard for people to connect the dots. And the conclusion I'm coming to right now is one of the most radical forms of activism in which we can participate is to heal ourselves. And it doesn't matter how much we talk or tell people things or try to share information, our modeling of it is what really penetrates. And so for me, I have a 15-year-old that's very much indoctrinated into germ theory. And he's getting all of these letters from colleges now, from medical schools. He was just invited to go to this medical school to, spend a few days. And they're just really pushing. Luckily, he doesn't want to go into medicine, thank God, because it gives me some time to work on him a little bit more. But we can't even have a well, we're starting to have conversations about it, let me just say, but he's been thinking I'm crazy. I'm just a wacko and the things I talk about. And so I stopped talking and I said, okay, the only way I can, really prove this is to practice what I preach. And so 3 weeks ago, I started the natural hygiene diet. So just eating, what species appropriate diet, fruits and vegetables in their raw state. And then I quit my addictions, two of my biggest addictions, which were drinking coffee and smoking cannabis. And this is hard for me, you guys, because these two go hand in hand for me. It's like the coffee wakes me up, the cannabis calms me, and they're like my coping tools for parenting, which is it. I'm a really high functioning stoner, and my daughter's sitting right next to me. I mean, I'm pretty transparent about these things, but
Okay.
removing those things from my life and then changing my diet in just 3 weeks' time, it's been so transformative, and it's only just the beginning. And as a result, my son is like, he loves to bake bread. And so he's baking bread and he comes over with this delicious piece of bread with butter on it. He puts it under my nose and he's like, he's tempting me. And I'm just really trying to show him that, I'm going to stick to what I say. And I tell him, the only way I can know this for sure is to practice on myself, Kai. We have to practice what we preach. And so I'm finding now this tremendous amount of clarity that's coming, that's helping me not have fear around communicating these things with people. And that's just coming from making these changes in myself. And so, is it Josh? Is that who we're addressing? Yeah. So Josh, I just want to say, I think that you could, come at it from a lot of different directions. I think, looking at Rockefeller medicine is a really good place to start, to show her the founding principles of modern medicine. I love Sherry Tenpenny as well. She's great. But maybe just easing her into taking a look at all the ways in which, as a couple, you evacuate yourselves. because when we're evacuating ourselves, we can't grow. We're in a victim mentality, right? And we're not able to take in information. And so, if you yourself start modeling this, just on the smallest of levels, it doesn't have to be so extreme as to go raw or something, but maybe just pick one addiction you have and remove it. It's like a snowball effect. It will have an impact on everyone around you, especially your wife, because you're her rock. So that would be my advice for somewhere to start.
That's so awesome, Amber. Thank you. Lynette, sorry about that. Go ahead.
Josh, do you want to respond before I?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind, especially if we're going to change topic, because
I'm not going to change topic, but I think you should go ahead and respond.
yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Awesome stuff, guys. There's so I mean, there's a lot of backstory that we don't really have time to get into, but I'll just mention that, especially to some of the recent comments from Amber, to her credit, we've done a lot of transformative stuff right now already. So like, gosh, the way we were living 3 months ago from the way we are now, I mean, we're eating raw, fresh, foods. We're making a lot of it our own. We don't do like processed stuff. Like, dude, she is on board with so many things, which is awesome. Which is why, like, the weird thing to me, it's like, man, just the desire to travel in her is so strong that it's seemingly like overpowering her sensibility, and she's dug in on her own through her own resources, which frankly I think is even maybe more powerful, where she was reading some other books and some other authors that were talking about clean living, and how it was lining up with a lot of the stuff that I've been telling her through my awakening. So it's not just like, oh, Josh is batshit crazy. Like, she's hearing it from like kind of the authority figure, right? So as you talked about, Dr. Tenpenny having the credentials. But I think you're also onto something with the demonstration versus explaining bit. While I think there's some room to take some information, like some of the stuff that, Danny was sharing, thank you, brother, and Anna as well. Like, I think there's room to lay some breadcrumbs, so to speak. But the demonstration side is so powerful. Like, real quick example, like we'll go running a lot. My wife's a runner. She was a runner in college as well. And especially during the winter time, we go run outside. And she thought I was a lunatic because I would run in short sleeves and shorts. And I wouldn't, make a thing of it. I wouldn't really wasn't trying to like pound my chest about it or nothing. She was just like, oh, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to get sick. And I was like, no, like, I get really hot when I run. So I don't want to, put on too much stuff. I would kind of just plan it off that way. But really what I wanted to demonstrate to her and to myself was like the effect of like cold and getting a cold or catching a cold. It's bullshit. And like, I wanted to demonstrate that. And rather than telling her like, no, this is bullshit, I'm going to show you, I kind of played it off like, yeah, I just get a little hot when I run. Like, we just have different temperatures. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me. Like, thank you. I appreciate it. And then without me saying anything, I think she somewhere, it has to resonate with her that it's like, this lunatic's been running outside in the cold in short sleeves and shorts when there's snow on the ground, day in and day out, and he's not getting sick. Like, what the fuck is going on here? So I'm trying to break down some of those barriers in like very creative and interesting ways. So yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to what you guys are sharing. And I think there's numerous elements I can pull in here to help me. So yeah, thanks guys.
Lynette, go for it.
So you guys are so knowledgeable, and your wisdom always just blows my mind. I'm still in the process of waking up myself, right? And this is all very new to me. I mean, not new in the sense of like it's a lifetime of uncovering, right? Of digging up this knowledge. But something that that I want to express is like being a mother, right? Having birthed a child, we have this connection to our children that fathers don't have. And it's this sense of knowing what is right for them that we're constantly told from the outside world we don't hold that knowledge, right? And I think the best thing that I feel you could do, Josh, because I've kind of gone through this in my own life with my own partner, is giving her that space and that time to unfold on her own and discover that she holds that knowledge. You know, she knows best what's right for your children. I mean, we know this. It just takes a long time sometimes to trust that gut intelligence, right? I mean, for myself, I shared this one night in dojo. My son, we had gone through the vaccination process as well, and I was always apprehensive, delayed schedule. And when it came to the flu vaccine, I was pretty against it, didn't want to do it. My pediatrician talked me into doing it, but doing a half dose. And so I went ahead and did that. The next day, my son woke up and was paralyzed from the waist down and could not walk for 5 days. When I reached out to our pediatrician, I didn't get a response. And it took that for me. Thankfully, my son is fine now. You know, he gained mobility, and I'm so thankful we did a half dose, that I did listen enough to my gut and what I knew was right, because I don't know what would have happened had I not. But it's give her the strength and the reminders that we hold so much knowledge being the mothers to our children, that we just need support in trusting that we hold that. So that's kind of what I wanted to share.
Thank you so much for that. I definitely, first of all, it gives me chills just thinking about that experience happening. I have never done the flu shot, and like in that first year, it was that loud gut that was like, wait a minute, you know, like my kid is healthy. And now come to find out, you know, a child's immune system isn't even fully functioning until like a year and a half, 2 years. And the whole way that they form a functioning immune system is by interacting with their environment and getting these things. And I've also been looking into a lot of the terrain theory, and what they're claiming is that all of the bacteria and viruses and everything like that, like those are our allies to help filtrate our system. And like Danny was saying, we've just been suppressing that for so long. And yeah, it just really struck me, you know, that gut instinct, like we all have that, and we all just need that support to listen to it. And Josh, I think that like just from hearing what you talk about in dojo, and here, like you and your wife are making such great strides with this journey that you guys are on, you know, both at different levels of awakening. And I think it's just really powerful. And I commend you, because I have never been able to have a successful anything with anybody. So I just really commend you for that, because you do give her so much support. And what I want to say is that, like, take her on a trip, man. Take her on a vacation in the United States. Rent a big vehicle, go to the beach. You know, there's so much to see right here on this land that we're on. And that tickle of the travel tickle might subside. So she might not want to go on the big cruise and the plane and all that. That's my suggestion. I think I have hands. Hold on, you guys. I'm on my phone today. I have Mark K next in line.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, Anna. Yeah, Josh, I don't know what I could add to top or improve on what everyone else has already said. We talked before in Dojo how we have similar situations, and yeah, I mean, just not knowing where your wife's at and all this research. I mean, my wife got me into organic food and healthier living, but the vaccines, that's really a tough one. There's just so many, just the dogma, the mantra in our culture is just so that this ended polio. People always try to shut you down with those quick answers like, well, what about polio? Yeah, it ended smallpox, all this stuff. It's just so ingrained in our brains that this is the way. This is why we eradicated all those diseases. So shifting from that is just so hard. And I don't think with my wife there's no material. I tried sharing Dr. Tenpenny's work with her and links, and there's just it's just kind of this resistance to this material. It's just like if someone's mind's made up on the thing. But as I shared with my experience and my wife wanting to take the COVID vaccine, I had a really good stance. I didn't wasn't too forceful. I wasn't trying to bring facts, but there's a few simple things about this that a rational thinking person should really think about it before they get this. The fact that it's still in the experimental state, and in the end, as I mentioned in Dojo, there wasn't anything that I said, but it was it was just her. One of her friends, seeing one of her friends on Facebook had this horrible side effect to one of the vaccines, and sometimes people just need to see this stuff for themselves. They need to realize what's going on here. It's just when all your friends are getting it, when the whole world is getting it, and you hear governments and all around the world saying, well, this is the way forward. This is the way we're going to get back to normal by doing this. And everybody just wants to get back to normal and go along with the flow and go along with what society's, the rest of society's doing. It's a huge challenge you're facing. So it's almost like, I don't want to say using tactics and tricks, but it just seems like she's not going to listen to anything that I say or any research or whatever. It's just, got to find out for herself. Just just these arguments like the polio thing. It's there's this famous graph. I think that I don't know if it was the CDC or the WHO, but how the decline of these certain diseases wasn't due to the vaccines, as someone said earlier. A lot of these were eradicated before the vaccines came out. It was the changes in refrigeration and refrigerating our food and things. Better sanitation that was actually contributing to eradicating these diseases. And there's clear graphs and charts that show that how that happens. So it's like those smoking guns, things like that. To me, those are the things that convince me. Yeah, you can show somebody that, and it's just like, you're that conspiracy theory guy. It's just I don't believe this stuff. This is not. Just people just need to find this stuff out for themselves. But definitely agree with there's the other options vacation around the country right now where you don't have to deal with getting quarantined or stuck in some other country or having to take a test or show them that you got this passport or whatever if they move forward on that. But yeah, we're in the same boat, man. I've avoided it for now, and I'm just like it. I feel bad sometimes, but it's just like I think about the more side effects, the more entries and VAERS in the VAERS system, and the more news reports about how horrible all these are and just how they're halting AstraZeneca everywhere and just all the horrible side effects people are having. I feel bad about it, but it's like, okay, people just got to figure this stuff out the hard way, and eventually just enough stories come across their news sites, what they feel is the truth, that I'm hoping that people would just kind of wake up to all this. But God, my parents are getting it. My sister, I just found out, got it. She posted the standard Facebook photo that the CDC actually helps you frame to show you that you got the vaccine. I'm just like want to throw up. All I can say is good luck, man. let's just keep doing our good work, and like just all the advice everybody else said, just ditto on that. That's it.
Thank you, Mark. It makes me think of like how humans have to go through this tragedy to get out of that belief bubble, like once your wife had that personal experience of her friend actually having the side effects, then she's finally like, okay, maybe I should question a little bit. And like Lynette, you felt your gut, and then all that pressure that we get as parents, like, oh, you have to do this, and your son became paralyzed, and then you're like, okay, my gut was right and I'm going with it. And I feel like just as a whole, I feel like that's how we learn. That's how us, like when we're kids and our parents, or we're like, don't do that, you're probably going to get hurt, and then they do it, and they slice their arm or something, and then they're like, oh, she was right. So I feel like that's just our human nature, is to subconsciously force ourselves through that tough learning curve. And that's just what come to mind after you shared, Mark. I'm going to check the hands, you guys. Amber, and then I have Johnny, Lynette, and Josh. Go for it, Amber.
Okay, I'll try to talk kind of fast because I know we have a lot of people on here. A couple of things coming to my mind is Freedom Airlines. I cannot remember the name of the woman. She worked in finance. She was pretty high in finance. But anyway, I can find the video and share it. But they're working on this project called Freedom Airlines to allow people, to allow people like us, us non-vaxxers, to travel. And I'm interested in that because my husband's Lithuanian and all of his family's in Europe. And so, the possibility of never being able to go there again is upsetting. So I'll find that video because I think that might give her some hope. And then, just touching on what the last person said about, this vaccine isn't approved by the FDA. So if they really believe that the FDA has our, us in their best interest, I mean, that's a talking point to mention. But I experienced with my oldest, he's vaccinated and I didn't want to, and everyone was against me on it. And, I was also a single parent. So I was pretty tapped out with all the pressure, of that. And I did a very delayed schedule. And then when he was going into 7th grade, we had moved and he wanted to go to public school for the year, and he had to get the vaccine. And he, from August 15th, he got the vaccine on August 8th on my birthday. And then a week later, he fell ill. And this kid was never sick before that. And he was sick until, so from then until mid-October, he lost 12 pounds. This is a growing boy, and he was chronically ill. And I gave birth to my youngest October 7th. So I was like about to give birth when all this was happening. And here is my son that's like turned into a skeleton, basically. It was terrifying, you guys. And I didn't make the connection to it being a vaccine injury until shortly after I severed ties with a very close narcissistic family member. And it's interesting because the reason this is when it all clicked for me was because I realized that I had been abused by this narcissist my whole life, and all these patterns of attracting these relationships with people, narcissists, and being an empath myself, they love us. I was constantly attracting these kinds of people. And it wasn't until I severed ties with my brother, that's the person I'm referring to, severed all ties with him about a year and a half ago, is when I started to realize, and it dawned on me that my son was vaccine injured. And it was just like this snowball effect. And so I just wanted to touch on that we're all under narcissistic rule. And if if we feel controlled by that mentality, then it's going to continue to control us in everything that we do. And then one other thing I wanted to say was that this is a good talking point, I think, too, maybe, is that the philosophy of science is that whatever the current theory is that exists, scientists should be constantly trying to disprove it. That's the philosophy of science. And we're not allowed to try to disprove germ theory. We've disproved germ theory time and time again. You know, we've seen all the studies, and it's not allowed because, you know, the medical system doesn't want it to be disproven. It's there to control us. So anyway, I just wanted to add all those things. And I love Amanda Vollmer. Danny actually turned me on to Amanda Vollmer, and she is just amazing. And she really inspires me, and she and it's a woman, you know, and I think sometimes that's helpful for women to hear other women that are in these fields talking about it. And then Stefan Lanka as well. You know, he's pretty amazing because he went up against the German Supreme Court to prove measles doesn't exist. So anyway, two others to mention.
Yeah, those are big ones. Those are good people to look into too. Johnny B, go for it.
Hi, Anna. Yeah, nice topic today. I mentioned something about one of my daughters. She was vaccine injured, but I think it was in Jeremy's dojo, which wasn't recorded. So I don't know if some of you might have missed it or not. So she's well now. She's 16, but when she was 2, she got the mandatory. Well, nothing's mandatory, but you know, the common MMR vaccine, the 3-in-1. Measles, mumps, rubella, and she developed similar to what's happening with the AstraZeneca. So it fucked up her platelets, but the opposite way. Platelets dropped. I think now with this vaccine, they're causing blood clots, so the platelets are just going nuts, going too high up. So typical range for platelets, from just going off of memory, is like 150 to 300. Something per million, and anything under 30 is dangerous. So her platelets, when she was 2, the very next day after the vaccine, dropped to 3, which was it's about as low as you can go. Basically, the blood does, if there was any cut, it would just keep bleeding. It doesn't blood clot at that stage. And I went through about 6 months back and forth to Toronto Sick Kids Hospital. In part, it caused my first marriage to fail. We didn't see eye to eye, me and my first wife, about this. I knew right away. I had no gut. Like Lynette said, she had an inkling. I had no idea. I just said, okay, vaccine, sure. I didn't even connect the two till several months later. And she was never put down as vaccine injured. Every doctor denied it. Even the top specialists, they don't want to link it up. But the main damage, other than the autism with vaccines, is the blood clots and the ITP, which is the opposite of blood clots, where you can't stop the bleeding. And that's a lot more common than they say. And you can't, I mean, you can show people. What I wanted to point out was you can tell people all these scientific people and doctors and all these opinions and books, but real life experiences are 10 times better than that, maybe 100 times better. So if you hear it from someone or whatever, but even then it's not foolproof, because my ex-wife, she has a child with her current husband, and fully on board vaccinating him. And even though she went through that whole ordeal, she still, you know, it's once you think, you have to believe that you are in charge of your health. And even though, like, everyone in my family right now is against vaccine. My wife never vaccinated our 8-year-old son. We don't even vaccinate our dogs. Like, this is the point where we're at. But still, if she has a headache, she takes Advil, and I'm like, I wouldn't, you know. I don't, even Advil is bad for you. My father-in-law, he's on warfarin, which is basically rat poison for blood thinner. There is natural stuff for everything. And I really believe in like self-healing and making yourself get better if you get in touch with nature. And it's either you get it or you don't. Like these people that are going to get vaccinated are going to get vaccinated. And if they need a booster shot, they'll get a booster shot. And if they need to do it every 6 months, they're going to keep doing it every 6 months. Some of them will learn, some of them will keep doing it until they have an effect. Some of them, their bodies can withstand it, and there's people who've taken the flu shots every year and they're fine. But it's not something that I would ever do. And yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to touch on. So thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Johnny. I am kind of blown away that in just this small group of people, we have so many that have experienced vaccine injury. It really is surprising to me, even knowing everything I already do know. You know, I've heard from so many vaccine injured parents with kids like that, and this is just blowing my mind that so many of you have experienced that. And it's a very good point that it's am I unmuted? Yeah, it's the belief that we have to. Like as a new mom, you're like, well, that's just what you do. That's what the doctors say. So that's what I do. And then you just believe like you have to for school, you have to for sports. And it's that belief. And then on the other side of it, like you said, Josh, in the chat, it's having to come to terms as a mother that we made the wrong choice. But we made those choices in ignorance, so I've always said that forgiveness is a personal thing. I do it for myself, so we have to forgive ourselves too, but it's just a really hard part of that process for sure. Lynette, and then Josh.
Yeah, Johnny, I want to say thanks for sharing that, because looking back on my pregnancy, this is again why I'm constantly learning from you guys. Looking back on my pregnancy, I took the flu vaccine again, didn't want to, called several friends that are OBs, and they just reassured me that I really needed to do it. And so I did. And my blood platelet dropped to extremely low. They were concerned that I was going to bleed out during C-section. And I never even put that together until right now. Like you saying that, just right now, I went, holy shit, that was my experience, and it was with the flu vaccine. So I'm just kind of taken back right now. But I wanted to say on another topic or another point, it takes like a tremendous amount of strength as a mother to stand up for our children, like you're constantly being targeted and taking hits from all directions when we know what's right. And so I just want to point out, touch on that topic of like the constant demand of strength that we're pulling from ourselves to stand up for what we know is right. And again, just kind of going back to like how we just really need support from, within this group, outside of each other, our spouses, those of us that can understand and build each other up. Like this for me just gives me strength, to keep fighting, to keep the fight. Like I know I'm doing the right thing, but to find other people that are also there helping hold us up, hold me up, just is really powerful. So I just want to thank you all for continuing to give me strength to be the mother that I know I am, that society has told me I'm not. So thank you.
That's so beautiful. It really is Like I can't even think of a word to describe it, but having us that we're all kind of trying to listen to our gut together. And the pressure from society is like crazy. And just having this circle of people who understand where we're coming from, it is just, it's so powerful. And that's so crazy. The realization, I think it's just Josh. And then, yeah, Josh and then Johnny.
On a road again.
Yeah, thank you. Man, Johnny, thanks for sharing that. I wasn't at that dojo where you shared that. I guess it was Jeremy's recording on a Friday or something. But yeah, man, just feel you a lot, brother. Feel you there. In a way, you know, sorry that you have to go through that, but not at the same time too. And as fucked up as that probably sounds, or messed up, sorry. But even like you know, Anna said earlier, it's like we're all gonna get injured here, right? Some it's vaccine injured, some it's emotional injury, whatever. I mean, there's always things that happen here. We go through these traumas, so you know, I do try and remind myself of things like that too. That while we try and do our best, and you know, I'm certainly not going to like go take up smoking cigarettes and become fat and go back, you know, eating Big Macs and whatever. Like, I'm not advocating for that type of lifestyle. Like, we try and do our best, but also keeping in the back of my mind that it's like, you know, there's going to be things that happen that arguably are within my control, that maybe if I go, oh, I pushed harder, I could have done X, Y, and Z, this would have happened or whatever. You know, you could have stopped it. But these injuries, these traumas, I mean, it's how we learn, right? It's how our kids learn. It's all that stuff. And I mean, this is a little bit maybe beyond the scope of what we're talking about here, but I've even been, you know, thinking about, and this is not something I've talked about in dojo. My daughter almost died when she was 3. We've got this big mirror, like a, I don't know what you call them, floor mirror or something like that. You know, one of those big heavy suckers. In our kitchen. It's beautiful. And God bless. My wife was like, you know, I really want to get this mirror. I really want to get this mirror for like forever. It's like, all right, cool, whatever. And they're super expensive. So we finally got it. And I had all the stuff to anchor it to the wall. And I was like, all right, cool. I was like, we'll do that, you know. I'll do that in a couple days. Like, I didn't do it right away. It wasn't the first thing I thought of. I didn't just do it. And we had a few friends over on, like, I think it was a Sunday night or Saturday night, and had some wine, and they were commenting on the beautiful new floor mirror that we had. And I was like, oh yeah, great. Yeah, we got it in there. It's awesome. And I was like, hey, just the last thing I need to do is just screw it in and anchor it to the fucking wall. And the very next day, I'm making dinner on a Sunday, I guess. And my wife's running around chasing chasing the kids in the kitchen, playing around. And my daughter's like pretending to be like a snake or something on the ground, whatever, just, yeah, just playing. And I hear this loud crash. And holy shit, man. I mean, I swear she was fucking dead. I swear to God, she was crushed. Like, it fell on the back of her head, and like serious head trauma, right? Serious. I lifted her up immediately and just like limp. And definitely not conscious, like blood coming out of her mouth. And holy shit, I don't know. Thank God. She just basically unscathed. I don't even know how to describe how that transpired, but it was ugly looking. And that thing is heavy, and she is a small 3-year-old girl. I don't know how she's with us right now, but yeah, just a beautiful trauma, I guess, in a way. And you know, even if we lost her, I don't know what happens after we're here. Um, so yeah, I'm not saying that you know, I'm gonna allow things to push forward with, you know, my wife kind of being co-opted by the medical system a little bit more lately. But there is definitely this this power that the system kind of has, right? That it just kind of keeps creeping back in. And you know, it takes it takes a lot of strength to really push back on it and to stand in our sovereignty. And I guess I just want to, you know, give some witness here to my wife in a way that, you know, how beautiful her transformation's even been in the last, you know, 6 months or so, with all the stuff that we've been through. And shit, I mean, the things I've pushed her so far. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, some of the anger that comes between us too. You know, when you think about from her perspective, I'm an earthquake. You know, I'm a fucking earthquake to everything that she has stood on for, I don't know, the last 20 years or whatever, right? Her whole worldview, and the strength that that woman has to stand by and to hear me, like to hear me, and to not always agree, not always you know, take it in stride and nice peaceful conversation. But man, just yeah, a lot of strength on her end too, to allow some of that into her thought process as well. So God, I wouldn't, I don't even know why I went there with you guys, but yeah, just I guess Johnny, just yeah, some of these things, these traumas, they happen, and some are uglier than others, right? But I think they're here to teach us in different ways. So yeah, I got other stuff, but I'm tapped now. Thanks.
Holy fuck, man. Yeah. This has been heavy. It makes me think of an incident my son, when he started to be able to climb up on the couch, he also wanted to Superman off the couch all the time. And he was at the daycare, and I worked an hour and a half away, and he Supermaned off that couch right into the corner of the table, and he was bleeding. He still has a scar from it today. But those traumatic experiences teach us so much. And Jesus, man, just the scariest thing ever. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I mean, it's got to feel good to just talk about it and get it out a little bit too. Lynette, I think your hand is up next, or it's Johnny.
I think it's Johnny's next.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. My internet keeps cutting out. Yeah, Josh. Wow. Yeah, I totally relate though. Trauma is here to make us who we are, and I don't regret what happened. I don't regret the choice of vaccinating her. It happened for a reason, you know. It helped in part show me the true nature of the woman I given my vows to, I guess, at the time. So yeah, but I mean, it was very rough during those times. And the hardest was when they were putting her to sleep because they had to do some procedure on her. And they just had me hold her. And then with the, sorry, it's a bit windy. When they administer, I forget the name of it, the stuff that puts you to sleep, anesthesia. And then her entire body goes completely limp, and then you're holding your 2-year-old that's completely limp. It's, you know, those are the joys of parenting they don't tell you about, that will be bumps and bruises, in some cases tragedy along the way, but everything's here to make us stronger. I just want to add one thing for what Lynette was saying about the platelets. The MMR vaccine at the time, I don't know if it's probably still in the print. This one of the most common side effects, and it's right there on the brochure, is temporary drop of platelets. And even though I showed the medical brochure from the vaccine company directly to the specialist at Sick Kids, he still told me to my face it's a coincidence. So yeah, I mean, you learn early on that some people are just lost in the procedure, and you know, not that he's a bad doctor, just he's following procedure, just like brown shirts did in World War II, if they really exist. So everyone just follows procedures and gets you where it gets you. So yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. Lynette.
Yeah, I want to give witness to Josh's wife, because I think I can identify with where she's at right now with the vaccine situation after hearing that story. I mean, she's seen her child die in front of her, you know, that fear of losing your child. And so the fact that she's come to where she even is at this point, I think is a tremendous strength in her. It's very easy to fall into then doing anything you can do that's going to keep your child alive, right? So I think I just want to, you know, just point out that I can see her strength, and I think it's amazing that she's come to where she is, and that you guys can even have conversations at all along this topic, because it's her job, right, to keep her baby alive. And so I just want to point out that I think it's pretty fantastic on her part where she is, where she's at, and it's a matter of time before she gets to where you are, Josh. I know it's there. It's just going to take her a little while. So I would still say, yeah, stick with that, being patient, and know, as you do, you know, you're very supportive, I can tell. But it's just going to take her a little bit of time after that traumatic incident, is what I feel.
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah. And thank you, Lynette. I appreciate that. And I appreciate, I appreciate you, you know, sharing your witness for my wife as well, right? Because I mean, I know she's not here in this conversation, but she'll feel it, right? She'll feel that. So thank you. Yeah, I wanted to, you know, add as well that, you know, it's interesting with the context of the vaccine stuff, and you know, I talked about polio, and one of the other things that she holds on to is measles, because I allegedly got the measles. You know, as Danny mentioned, you know, we were raised in a similar fashion. We didn't have vaccines as kids, and growing up, I wasn't vaccinated until I was like 28 years old or something like that. And I got vaccinated after I, quote unquote, got the measles, maybe not. And because my wife and we went on a honeymoon internationally, And we just decided to just give us all the shots you can give us, right? Just load us up and make sure we're good to go before we go on our trip. And she holds on to this day that she's like, well, Josh, like, you got the measles. And I was like, well, did I though? And, you know, and she knows this. So like, whatever, like the truth of the situation is like, I was on my bachelor party in Las Vegas for 4 days, nonstop doing cocaine. And it was like, I did a lot of drugs and I basically just did cocaine and booze for 4 days and maybe a cheeseburger here and there. And then I came back and I got incredibly sick. You know, I had like a rash, I had a crazy high fever. You know, I went to the hospital and they were like, they weren't even sure like what the heck it was. And they were like, this kind of looks like the measles. Like they didn't freaking know. They brought in like 7 different attending doctors. Like I was curious to them because they're like, I've never seen this before. And I even tell her, I'm like, well, they kind of thought I had the measles. They didn't even really like officially say I had the measles. They said like, it kind of looks like it might be. They didn't freaking know. But it's interesting because she holds on to that. She's like, well, you had the measles. And I'm like, listen, you know, woman, I was like, I'm the one who went through it. I was like, I know what you're saying, but I'm not even sure that they knew what the heck was what it was. And I know what just happened the 4 days beforehand. I was like, you think it's a coincidence that I get the measles after I go on this bender? You know, they tried to tie it into, ironically, there was like a news story at the time that in New York City, there were these travelers from Europe that were spreading the measles. And we live in New York City. And she was like, oh, there you go. That's how you got it. And I was like, yeah, maybe, or maybe I just almost, my body was crashing because all the stuff I just dumped into it. But anyway, just, you know, it's interesting the things we latch onto to try and hold on to the narrative that's been pumped into us for so long. So yeah, you know, I really appreciate all the witness you guys have all shown me today. And, you know, I think the things that I'm holding on to most are try not to react, right? So I think in the past, sometimes, you know, like she would bring up, for the example of like, hey, the polio thing or whatever, like my knee-jerk reaction maybe 6 months ago would have been like, you know, jump down her throat and have an argument about it. But today, or what we did the other day, which was like, hey, I just let her talk about it. And I was like, okay, yeah, like I see where the doctor is coming from. Like I could see why the doctor would say those things. And then just following up with a little bit of conversation about like, well, but at the same, you know, token, that's the doctor's perspective, right? Like that's what she knows. She's trying to do the best and she believes that stuff. I was like, you know, we know that that's not really true, right? And that there may be some inconsistencies to what the doctor knows, to what we know, you know, and things of that nature. So I want to second a lot of what you guys are saying, which is like, you know, embolden and empower ourselves that we know what's going on, right? Like Lynette said, like you've got this motherly gut instinct, like you know that what's best for your child. And I'm trying to like reinvigorate that inside of her and, you know, disempower the system and be like, just because this woman has a, you know, medical doctor doesn't mean that she knows any better than you, Heidi. Like, you know what's best for your child. Like this doctor doesn't know you. She doesn't know our diet. And one of the things I brought up to Heidi as well, which is I was like, you know, the doctor was telling you all these things about how like we shouldn't give our kids too much milk and, you know, too much bread and all this stuff. And I was like, think about the things that she was telling you. Like these are all good suggestions for maybe people that are eating like too much McDonald's and soda and Cheetos and all this good stuff. I was like, babe, I was like, we don't have soda in the house. I was like, we have, even the juices are sugar free. I was like, everything we have is like better than 99.9% of every American, you know, the way that we live. I was like, we're doing all of that stuff already. I was like, she's just giving you advice that's good for the generic person walking into her office. And I really do think a lot of that resonated because it wasn't confrontational. It was like, try and hear where she's coming from, try and hear where the doctor is coming from. And then a little bit of reframing of like, no, like we're doing great. Like just keep up what we're doing. So anyway, I just wanted to maybe share that on a more positive note after, sorry, taking us into a dark place earlier.
No, that's okay. I think that today's, I think is a great subject. especially because what I've been going through this week and the topic of tragedy is quite synchronistic. Yeah, I really love these bonus parent dojos. It is getting close to 2, and Amber has her hand up, and then we will go ahead and close it out for today.
I just I wanted to say I really appreciated what you just said, and I'm having a similar experience with my son where I'm not rejecting what he's telling me anymore. Not like, no, you're wrong, and getting so emotional about it. I'm just listening to him. And I'm like answering him, even if I completely disagree. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, well, that's definitely, yeah, I didn't think about it in that way. And just trying to like be a witness, because he needs to be heard so he can figure it out. If we don't hear people and let them figure it out for themselves and we're telling them what to do, they're just going to rebel against us. So yeah. And that's, it's really helping me. Last night we drove to town to get some groceries because he's going camping this weekend with some friends, and something, the guy at the door as we were leaving, because I had my mask under my nose, and he backed away from me, and we walked out, and my son was like, I was like, did you see he was bowing to me, Kai? What was that about? He's like, no, Mom, he was backing away from you. He's maybe he's immune compromised, and he's worried he's going to catch something from you, right? That dialogue. And I brought up contagion, and oh, he was pissed. He was so mad at me. But then, what did I say to him? It was something along the lines of, I brought up the flu pandemic, the contagion, study they did in 1918, and just mentioned a few little things, and then I stopped. And then he said, after we had stopped, can we just stop talking about this? I'm like, totally. Like, absolutely, we don't have to talk about this at all. And turned on the music, and he got over it quicker. Whereas in the past, he's mad at me, and then he's like, wants to argue more. Because there's just been this power struggle. So yeah, I'm just trying to practice what you were just saying as well, is like, just being a witness, right? Like, not even saying anything a lot of the time at all, just being a witness. I don't send him videos. I'm going to let him figure it out for himself, and just keep modeling myself the changes, the transformation within myself, and they're all going to be okay. We just have to remind ourselves that everyone's going to be okay, right? If we don't figure it out in this lifetime, we'll figure it out in the next. So that's all.
That's so awesome. Absolutely. I really think we're all on our own path, and we're all going to get to the point where we need to be exactly when, we're here to fuck up and learn about it. I love that. All right, you guys, let's unmute and say goodbye, and I will hopefully see you guys Sunday.
Bye, everyone.
Have a great day, guys.
Thanks.
Bye,
everybody.
guys. Thank you so
for
much.
coming.
Thanks,
You
Anna.
guys are awesome.
Happy Friday
Love
and
you
happy new
all.
moon.
Happy
Yes,
Friday.
Happy new moon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.